Hello everyone, here's Saad Aslam. I'm the founder of Technology और आज का आपको थोड़ा सा एक इंट्रोडक्शन देता चलूँ जो आज का हमारा सेशन है साइबर सिक्योरिटी फंडामेंटल्स के ऊपर। ठीक है, तो काइंडली मैं एक दफ़ा आवाज़ की क्लियरेंस करवा लूँ कि मेरी आवाज़ आप लोगों को क्लियर है, तो उसके बाद मैं जो सेशन जो है वो स्टार्ट करता हूँ। ठीक है, सो आज का जो हमारा सेशन है वो है साइबर सिक्योरिटी फंडामेंटल्स के ऊपर। ठीक है, तो उसको स्टार्ट करने से पहले मैं आपको थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन करवा दूं। सो बेसिकली आई एम साद असलम फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान एंड आई एम द फाउंडर ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी। ठीक है, सो आई एम डूइंग रिसर्च ऑन साइबर सिक्योरिटी एंड आई एम एसोसिएटेड विद नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एंड सिक्योरिटी। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट दिस सेशन। आज जो हम चीज़ें कवर करेंगे उसके अंदर जो हमारी आज की ब्रीफ आउटलाइन हम देख लेते हैं। साइबर क्या है? ठीक है, अगर हम साइबर सिक्योरिटी को डिस्कस करते हैं तो हमारा पहले कंसेप्ट ये क्लियर होना चाहिए कि साइबर क्या है। ठीक है, फिर हमारी साइबर सिक्योरिटी की डोमेन्स कौन कौन सी हैं। ठीक है, फिर उसके बाद बेसिक टर्म्स एंड टर्मिनोलॉजीज ऑफ सिक्योरिटी उसको हम देखेंगे। फिर कुछ सर्टिफिकेशंस हैं जो कि आप लोग कर सकते हैं। फिर कुछ नेटवर्क मॉडल्स हैं, एथिकल हैकिंग के बारे में बात होगी। कौन कौन से साइबर थ्रेट्स आप लोगों को we'll discuss what are the threats and getting familiar to Kali Linux. So let's start. So first, the things you need to understand is what is the meaning of cyber, ठीक? And what is cyber security, and what is the need of cyber security. So when we have to discuss cyber, so these are the things you must know to start with the cyber security. So let's start. So what is the meaning of cyber? Cyber means anything that is digital. Means it includes your digital devices, your mobile phones, your handsets. It includes all sorts of medium that includes digital sorts of mediums. So it can be your devices that are performing digital computation. So when we talking about cyber, so we have to discuss a term that is cyberspace. When their devices we are linked with online medium. So cyberspace is basically your devices when online your transmission of data increases. Suppose when we talk about Facebook, and there is about millions of posts a minute, a second. So it all includes in cyberspace. It includes all mediums that includes digital communication. So how big cyberspace is? It increases second by second, not a minute, not an hour. It includes second by second. So here you can see a figure. It includes digital devices. So it also includes cyberspace. So all here you can show, you can see some devices. It includes your PC, your laptop, your smartphones. So all are connected. So it all includes in a cyberspace. So as we have discussed some terms like cyber and cyberspace, so let's move on to cybersecurity. So the term cybersecurity is used to refer to security offered through online services to protect your online information. So all your information that needs to be protected online, it needs to be dealt with this cybersecurity. So cybersecurity refers to the technologies and processes designed to protect computers, networks, and data from unauthorized access, vulnerabilities, and attacks delivered via the internet. So these attacks can be performed by cyber criminals. You also know as they are hackers. We will discuss hackers in the last of the session. So your data need to be protected from these criminals. So we have to use cybersecurity to ensure that our data remains in safe hand. Not we have to give it to unauthorized person. So cybersecurity is important for network data and application security. So the main purpose of cybersecurity, you can say that it is to protect our data. Our our main goal is to protect our data. So why we need cybersecurity? We have discussed what is cybersecurity. So now discuss why we need cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is necessary since it helps in security data from threats such as data theft or misuse. Also safeguard your systems from viruses. As we have discussed that hackers can harm your data or can steal, so we need uh, some sort of security to protect our data from unauthorized access. So with an increasing amount of people getting connected to internet, as we have discussed earlier about cyberspace, so we can see that second by second people are getting connected to internet more. So the security threats increases and it can cause massive harm. So we need cybersecurity to deal with all sorts of threats. So here is an example of a most common uh, ransomware attack. You must have known about this attack. So in this attack, uh, the attacker encrypts your files and it demands a ransom to decrypt that files. Means your files are encrypted and you need some sort of here you can see there is a payment portion and here's a time. So you have to pay the attacker uh, some sort of amount to decrypt your files, otherwise your files get lost. So here is an example of a ransomware attack. So things you should know. First, computer non-virus. We have to start some sorts of things you should know. The first known computer virus appeared in 1971 and was named as Creeper virus. So, uh, to the Creeper virus was eventually deleted with a program known as Reaper, because there was a first virus, as I discussed, was Creeper virus, and there was a antivirus called Reaper. But it is important to note that the the virus that actually removed that Creeper virus was also a virus itself. It is a thing you should know. So let's move forward to domains of cybersecurity. So we'll discuss these domains in detail in the upcoming slides. So access control systems and methodology, telecommunications and network security, business continuity planning, and disaster recovery planning, security management practices, security architecture and models, law, investigation and ethics, application and systems development security, cryptography, computer operations security, and physical security. So there are some domains of cybersecurity that we'll discuss in upcoming slides. So first domain is access controls. So access controls authenticate and authorize individuals to access the information they are allowed to see and use. As we have discussed that we have to protect our data from unauthorized access, so we need some source of controls that we can uh, provide authorization for our data. So here you can see that something you know, but are the controls you can provide means you something you know means you know passwords. Suppose you have a social profile like Facebook, Twitter, so you know passwords about that profile. So here is a control you have, something you are, your biometric scan. When there's a account in your bank, so you verify your account by a biometric scan. So here's a control you have, something you have an ATM card, you have to withdraw cash, so you use ATM card and the ATM card is yours, so you have control over that data. So something you do, his signature style is an example of something you do. Suppose you have to sign a check, so your sign is identical or and unique, so you have control over that. You can. So let's move forward. CIA, it stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality, let's discuss first about confidentiality and we'll discuss integrity and availability in the next slides. So in confidentiality, it ensures that computer-related assets are accessed only by authorized parties, sometimes called secrecy or privacy. So here I've used terms secrecy or privacy. So I have to tell you that there is a difference between secrecy or privacy. They are somehow identical, but there is a difference between them. Suppose I take example of a social profile. So you apply privacy to your profile so that your friends can see your profile other than online public. So here comes the concept of privacy. But when it comes to secrecy, suppose you have to do a post and you make this post secret, means you can only you can see this post. So your friends can also not see that post. So there is a difference between secrecy or privacy. So basically, the concept of confidentiality is to apply secrecy or privacy to your data so that unauthorized persons cannot use or access that data. So the technique used is for this purpose is encryption. Suppose I'll take a basic example to describe this concept. Suppose you want to encrypt a word hello. A basic encryption technique you can apply is you can replace every alphabet of hello, like H, you can replace it with I, E with F, and you encrypt that data and transmit to the other receiver so that there is a no unauthorized person can see your data in transmission. So you can encrypt your data hello, and when it encrypt, it will change it to an unmeaningful data. So you can transmit your data to the other end in a secured way. Then at the receiver end, there is a decryption of that word hello in the same technique you have used. Suppose I have used here H to replace with I, and then at the receiver end, the other person will replace I with H. Then your meaningless word will decrypt to a meaningful information. So here you can see a figure for encryption and decryption. Here is your plain text. You encrypt that plain text, and your plain text encrypt into a ciphertext. In cryptography, we call it ciphertext. Means we have used some sort of encryption technique and applied to that plain text, and then your plain text converted into a ciphertext. Then your ciphertext is transmitted to the receiver, and then your ciphertext is then decrypted to a plain text. Here you can transmit your data in a secured way. Here, so unauthorized persons cannot use that data. So let's move forward. So encryption, we discuss in detail about encryption. So encryption is the process of making data unreadable and unusable to unauthorized users, as I have discussed earlier. To use or read the encrypted data, it must be decrypted, which requires the use of a secret key. Suppose I have discussed that we have replaced our word H with I. So here is a secret key. It's a basic example. Hello, there source of encryption techniques you can use. So you need an encryption key for that. There are two top levels of encryption. So there are two types of encryption. There is symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. So symmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption basically uses the same key to encrypt or decrypt data. Suppose I have discussed the example of hello world. So here I have used the same source of encrypt we call technique. They uses a same key, means the sender and the receiver both uses the same key to encrypt your data. Consider a desktop password manager application. You enter your password and they encrypt your data with a personal key. When the data is to be retrieved, the same key is used and the data is decrypted. Means your computer is using a same key for encrypted, and then using the same key to decrypt that data also. So let's talk about asymmetric encryption. So asymmetric encryption uses a public key and a private key pair. In symmetric key, we discuss that it uses the same key. But when talking about asymmetric, so it uses a public key and a private key. Either key can encrypt, but a single key can't decrypt. Means you need both keys for a successful or secure transmission of your data. Suppose if you have used a public key to encrypt, so the other end you will need a private key to decrypt. So you need a pair of the keys. Asymmetric encryption is used for things like transport layer security used in HTTPS and data signing. So basically, there are two approaches of encryption. So encryption at rest and encryption at transit. So basically, encryption at rest is your data that is stored physically on your computer. Like we discussed the example of a computer password. This encryption is called encryption at rest. The other is encryption at transit. Suppose you have to transmit your data from an online digital medium. So this encryption at transit because your data is in transmission process. So let's move forward. Now discuss about integrity. It means that assets can be modified only by unauthorized parties, only in authorized ways. Suppose you have a file and you send it to the other end, and you want that only authorized parties are able to open it and modify it. Unauthorized parties cannot modify this file. In confidentiality, we have to make sure that our data is transmitted secure way. In integrity, we have to make sure that our data is modified only by authorized parties. No unauthorized persons are able to access that. So technique used for this is hash. There are multiple sources of hash calculators. We'll discuss hash calculator. Calculator basically takes a file as input and apply an algorithm. So the purpose of hashing is to show that original file is not modified. Let's do a demo of hashing. We'll use a hash calculator called Microsoft File Checksum Integrity Verifier. This hash calculator is used to make sure that your integrity of the file is maintained. So let's do a demo. So here I have download. Here's my folder. Here I have download my hash calculator called FCIV. You can download from the browser. You just have to type Microsoft File Checksum Integrity Verifier. So I have downloaded it here. Uh, so I have to open the Git bash. So it here you can see I'll uh, show the integrity of a file called readme.txt. There is a readme there. Here you can open it and there is a complete information about this hash calculator. There is what is a file checksum integrity file. When you download this calculator, you automatically download this file. You can open it and complete read it. What are the hashing techniques you can use? There is MD5, SHA1. So you can use any source of hashing techniques for that. So we'll open that file in our command prompt. So you have to type FCIV, and the name of the file readme.txt, and then the hashing. So the basic syntax of this hash calculator is you have to type FCIV, and then the name of the file you have to calculate integrity of. Then the hashing technique you have to use. So here you can see a hash code. Basically, it is the hash code of this README file. Now I will modify the file by typing some S. Here I have added S and saved. So here I have modified my file by adding S. So again I will calculate the hash of this file. So here you can see there is a difference between the hash codes. It's because we have modified the file. It's not in its original form. So we'll open it again, and we'll remove the S from the file and Control S, and we'll again calculate the. So here you can see the hash code of our last and our first is same because we have removed any sort of modification. So basically, the purpose of this hash calculator is to use and to make sure that your file hasn't been modified, that it is in its original form. So that's the process of integrity. Basically, it is a basic example. You can use this integrity when you can also use, you can visit Kali Linux. You can see that there is a hash code there. Basically, the purpose of this is to make sure that you have downloaded the original form of Kali Linux. You haven't installed any sort of modified or unauthorized software. So basically, the purpose of hash calculator is to make sure that your file hasn't been modified. So here's a Microsoft file checksum integrity file. You can download it from the browser. So here you can see hashing. So basically we have used a plain text. In our example, we have used a plain text called readme.txt file, and we have applied a hash function. We have used hash function sha1 here, and then our file has been uh, generated a hash code. I will show you the hash code. So basically here we have used a plain text called readme.txt, and we have applied sha1, a hashing technique, and it's you can see here's a hash code. So basically there is a figure of this. You can use other sorts of hash calculators. They are other also, you can download it from the browser. So the next term is availability. So as CIA, so there are three terms called confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So here's the last term of this, availability. Basically, availability means that your assets are accessible to authorized parties at appropriate times. Means if you have to use any sorts of data, so we have to make sure that your data is available all the time. Means you have to use your data, so it isn't hasn't been modified or unusable. So you have to make sure that your data remains available all the time. So there are multiple ways, or there are multiple attacks that criminals can do to make your data unavailable. You have known about DOS attacks. So we'll discuss different sorts of DOS attacks here later on. So before discussing those attacks, you have to make sure that you know about ping command. So basically, ping command is a computer network administration software utility used to test the reachability of a host on an internet protocol network. So basically, ping command is used to make sure that your data has been transferred from one source to the other. So it is a very basic command, but it is more important when you are talking about the availability or reaching about the destination. So simple way to verify that a computer can communicate over the network with another computer or network device. So basically you use a ping command to make sure that your devices are connected. When we talk about network configurations, so the first thing you have to make sure that your devices are connected. So your network can start transmission. So here's the first step you have to take. So you can basically, uh, I will type CMD. Just make an example of this. So ping 127.0.0.1. So basically 127.0.0.1 is a loopback address, also called localhost. It's basically used for test purposes. I have used a ping command to test that your connection is successful. You can use other IPs here to check your connection with the other devices. So basically
Guys,
ping command is,
Saad,
yes.
hello. Actually, I think you have only shared the screen of the presentation. Can you please share the whole screen? Actually, CMD
Okay,
is not visible.
okay. Share CMD.
There is a whole screen share option. You can share using that so that you don't have to change it every time.
I think you have missed that hash calculator thing.
Yeah, yeah, we might have missed it.
Are you? Are you seeing my screen now?
Yeah, yeah, now it is visible. Yes, yes, it is visible now.
Great, great. So I will review the hash calculator again because you cannot see. So here is I have downloaded my Microsoft file checksum integrity verifier. So I will review it again. So I'll open a git bash here. I have downloaded my Microsoft file checksum integrity verify in that folder. So here's a complete documentation you can read about that calculator. So here's a README file. Uh, you can download, you can read it here. There are multiple sorts of hash calculators like ND5 SHA1. We'll use SHA1 as our hash calculator. So we'll apply hash calculator to this README file. So you have just type FCIV, then readme.txt SHA1. So basically, you have to type FCIV and then the name of the file and what your hashing you are applying. So you can see that here's a hash code generated of that file. So basically, this is the hash code. Now I will open the file and modify it by adding S. Just I have modified the file. I will again apply that hashing technique. So you can see there's another hash code not similar to the same because I have modified the file. Okay. So I will open again that file and remove it and again save that because I have removed all of the modifications here. So I will again apply the. So here you can see the hash code is same to the first because we have removed our modified things. So basically, the main purpose of this hash calculator is to make sure that your integrity remains. This thing is also being used in the cyber forensics when you are doing some sorts of investigation processes. Then you have to make sure that the integrity of your file is maintained. It's a very important concept. So uh, now I was discussing about ping command. So you have to make sure that your ping command is working. This is a very important concept in just CMT. I will open it. Before discussing those attacks, you have to make sure that you are aware of the ping command. So basically, ping command and 127.0.0.1. So basically, it makes sure that your devices are connected. Basically, 127.0.0.1 is the loopback address called also called localhost. So it makes sure that your devices are connected. You can use other sorts of IPs to make sure that your devices are connected with the destination. So let's move forward. So what are the different sorts of DOS attacks? We'll discuss four attacks here. So the first is ping of death. The other is ping of flood, and Smurf attack and Fraggle attack. So basically, ping of death. So in ping of death attack is a DOS attack in which the attacker aims to disrupt a targeted machine by sending a packet larger than the maximum allowable size. Suppose here you can see the maximum allowable size is 65538 bytes, but the attacker is sending double of that file. So this sort of attack is called ping of death because the attacker has applied double of that maximum allowable size. So it will cause the targeted machine to freeze or crash. So it's the first type of DOS attack. So we'll discuss the other. So ping of flood. It's just similar to ping of death. The difference here is in ping of death, the attacker aims to disrupt by sending a packet larger than the maximum allowable size. But in ping of flood, also known as ICMP flood, is a common DOS attack in which attacker takes down a victim's computer by overwhelming it with number of echo requests. Means the attacker sends a lot of requests uh, larger than its acceptance. So we have discussed about ping commands. So the attacker use enormous amount of ping commands to disrupt your victim computer. So So basic example of this is education board website. So when we see that our result is coming, so our websites get very busy. So the main, it's not a DOS attack, but is example of that, that our uh, number of requests pings increases. So here you can see a figure here, uh, that there are enormous amounts of echoes going on from the attacker end to the victim. So you can see the attacker is sending number of echo requests, and the victim gets crashes or freeze. So the next attack is Fraggle Attack. Is a bit complicated than the ping of flood and ping of death. Here the attacker uses IPs of other users. The attacker doesn't attack directly to the victim. The attacker uses IPs of some other users, like on, it can be any other device that shows IP of there, and when a victim has to go back to the IPs, it doesn't go back to the attacker, because the attacker has used IPs of other users. So the it's a bit complicated attack than we have discussed about ping of death and ping of flood. Also, it is known as spoofing. So spoof packets are used. So when we're discussing about ping commands or networks, so here comes the concept of telecommunications. Basically, when we have to discuss that our devices are connected, so telecommunication is a very important concept. It focuses on communications protocols and network services, and the potential vulnerabilities associated with each. Basically, there are two types of protocols. One is the TCP/IP protocol, and the other one is OSI model. You have discussed about it. We'll discuss a brief description between them. So basically, when we talk about OSI, it has 7 different layers. When we discuss about TCP/IP, it is restricted to some five, uh, 5 to 4 layers. So there's a main, when I ask you about, so what is more preferable then? So basically, OSI model is a conceptual model. It's not reliable and secured as compared to TCP/IP when we are talking about our network devices to be connected. So basically, it has OSI has 7 layers, and when we talk about TCP/IP, it is restricted to 4 or 5 layers, which are doing the same task that the 7 layers are doing. So when we talk about which is more preferable, so TCP/IP is more preferable than OSI framework, and TCP/IP is a practical model as compared to OSI. So here comes another domain of cybersecurity. It is contingency planning. So nowadays is the situation of COVID-19. I will discuss an example like this. So when we talk about Corona or COVID-19, so incident response, when it started, it was a low level issue. There are multiple tiers. First step is you have to identify that problem. If an attack arises, you have to identify, investigate, perform remedy and reporting. You have to do these sorts of tasks when attack has been done. You have to make sure that uh, you apply investigation or forensics on that issue. So it's a low level issue. But when it comes to disaster, a high level issue, so we'll discuss in disaster recovery. Basically, you can see that first step is IR, which is incident response. We have discussed it, and then other is disaster recovery, which is DR, and the other is BCP, business continuity planning. Like we can see that COVID-19 has highly affected our institutions, our education. So now after that situation, we have to continue moving on. So this sort of planning is discussed in business continuity planning. When everything is destroyed in disaster, then how to continue with the business, then we discuss in business continuity planning. So they are the 3 terms that are included in this contingency planning. So then other domain is laws, investigation, and ethics. So basically, One of the more interesting security domains is law. When we are talking about our cyber security, so there are some sorts of laws that are associated with it. So we have to make sure that we are uh, obeying that laws so that we can apply a particular security to our application. As the name implies, this security domain covers the legal issues associated with the computer security. So you have to make sure that your computer security has been covered by the covers the legal issues. Cryptography. We have discussed the terms like encryption, decryption, so it becomes more familiar to us to discuss about cryptography. Cryptography is a major field. There are multiple encryption techniques. We haven't discussed it yet because it needs another session or it a major field of study. So basically, cryptography is one of the most widely used security techniques today. That is the encryption of the data. We have discussed encryption at rest, encryption at transit. What are the different sorts of symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption? There are multiple uh, encryption techniques you can use. There are streamlined ciphers, blockline ciphers. It includes a major field. The the cryptography security domain is designed to help you understand how and when to use encryption. Basically, we have used encryption, so it basically ensures that when and why you need an encryption. So let's move forward. So you must be familiar to the types of hackers. So one is white hat hacker, black hat hacker, and gray hat hacker. So the most destructive among them is the black hat hacker, because it causes destructive manner to your data. It there's, we have discussed the attacks like those attacks, Fraggle Attack. We'll discuss like here you can see an attacker. So basically, this sort of attack is done by a black hat hacker because it causes destructive uh, manner to your victim. So this sort of attacker is called a black hat hacker. Other than the black hat, here comes the gray hat hacker. So basically, gray hat hacker doesn't have to make your system destructive or to harm your data, but it do in legal way because it has the hacker hasn't used some sort of legal way to hack. Because we have discussed about laws and investigations. So when our computer security is concerned, so we have to make sure that it is legal. So gray hat hacker doesn't mean to harm your computer, but he doesn't do in a legal way. So he comes in the um, way of gray hat hacker. And the last is the white hat hacker. So basically, white hat hacker means that he doesn't have to uh, he make it doesn't may harm your computer, but he do your yeah his work in a legal way. The company sometimes hires white hat hackers to test their security measures, their computer applications, and there's a complete sign between them. There's a complete permission that white hacker before doing any sort of hacking. It requires permission from the destination, so he does in a legal way. But a hat hacker does that in an illegal way, but he doesn't have to harm your computer. So there's a difference between the three of them. So as we have discussed about white hat hacker, so basically white hat hacker is other way you can say that he is an ethical hacker because it is legal. Permission is obtained from the target. It is an overall part of a security program, as I have discussed that uh, the hacker requires permission from the target. So the hacker identify vulnerabilities from the internet at particular point of time. Ethical hackers possesses some skills, mindset, tools of a hacker, but the attackers are done in a non-destructive manner, as I have discussed in black hat hacker or gray hat hacker, they do in a destructive manner, specifically about black hat hacker because they have to destruct your data. But ethical hackers possesses some skills and they do attacks, but they are non-destructive. So you can, if you have to study a more detail in ethical hacking, you can visit this uh, website. It is ecouncil.org. There are multiple certifications you can do on this ethical hacking. About version 10 is going on for this ethical hacking course. You can visit this course and you can uh, view multiple sorts of courses you want to do. So when we are talking about virtual machine, so basically virtual machine, you can, as you are familiar, that you are using some sort of uh, OS distros like Kali Linux, so you are using a VM because I have running a Windows machine and I am using a virtual machine on that, and then I will use a Kali Linux. So basically, uh, VMware works for this purpose because you can see there is a physical hardware and there's a host operating system and there's a hypervisor running on that operating system, and you can run other virtual machines like Ubuntu and Kali Linux. So basically, VMware works the way for this. So just we are discussing about VMware. So basically, we have used Kali Linux. So basically, Kali Linux is a Debian-derived Linux distribution maintained and funded by Offensive Security Limited, primarily designed for penetration testing and digital forensics. Uh, the complete, as we are short of time, so I not use Kali Linux here because it will require time. So we have discussed the different domains of cybersecurity. Uh, you have to you have to make sure that you are self-aware of that domains. Will review that domains again. So basically, we have discussed these domains like access controls when we have to verify that we have complete control over our data. We have discussed telecommunications like uh, different sorts of protocols like TCP/IP or OSI. We have discussed like business continuity planning. There are three terms like IR, incident response, contingent, business continuity planning, and disaster recovery. Security management practices and what are the security architecture and models and laws and investigations that your data needs to be done in a legal way. And application and systems development security. We have discussed different sorts of cryptography like encryption, decryption, and what are the different symmetric and asymmetric encryption, and computer operation security and physical security. So I think that's it from my side. If you have any questions, you can ask. I'm open to your queries. So if you have any questions about the hash calculator, you can ask CIA. So I'm open to your queries.
So thank you, Saad, for this wonderful session. Guys, I have unmuted your mics. Can you, if you have any queries, you can ask, or in the chat section also you can ask.
If you have any questions like domains, what are the different domains you can study, or I will share a complete. Uh, we have resources. I will share the resources with the team. They will give it to you so you can start learning the different domains and what resources you can use in a particular way. I will share that resource with the team after that session.
So there is a query in the chat section.
Okay.